Hi, I'm Bernie Mitchell, and welcome to this edition of The World is My Location. And obviously, with COVID, the world is no longer my location. Like everybody else, I got to figure out a way to bring the world to me. And the world of production has dramatically changed because of COVID. So I thought what we would do in this episode is I'd invite three of my friends to come in and give us their perspective of what's happening. We'll have one from a camera manufacturer, one view from a reseller, and one view from a guy who owns a production company and is an end user.
I'm Steve Mahrer. I'm the technologist for the Panasonic sort of broadcast group. And my role is primarily technology, obviously, imaging technology, camera technology, and a lot of things like workflows, color science, compression, file formats, and it's interesting.
Kenny Chrysler. For the last 25 years, I was the manager of Showcase Video in Atlanta, Georgia, a reseller for Sony, Panasonic, Canon, JVC, pretty much everything. A couple years ago, the owners retired, so I am now working, still in Atlanta, but I'm working for Professional Audio and Video Systems Corp., which is a stocking dealer in Miami, Florida.
My name is Art Aldridge. I've been in the production business over 35 years. I have a production company that does mainly high-end corporate video. I also have a podcast, which I'll give a shameless plug to, called This Week in Production. And you can get that on all podcast platforms. And Bernie has been a guest on that podcast as well.
Speaking of your podcast, I know that recently you did a couple of episodes about how difficult it was to get equipment. And so I think that that'd be a good place for us to start. It's sort of like, if you need equipment, if you need cameras, if you need lights, if you need encoders, what's it really like out there? And we'll start with Art. Go ahead.
Well, I think it depends on what you're trying to buy. Like, I'm sure if you're trying to buy big production stuff like, Varicams or, lenses, I'm sure there's no issue with that. What I'm finding is that if I need a streaming encoder, or I need a webcam, or I need something that's, less than $5,000, those items are basically stripped out of supply, and you're either going to secondary tier items, which are usually less quality, or you have to go black market and pay, high prices on eBay for things. It's really quite frustrating. Even the logistics sometimes of just ordering something that's in stock and not being able to get it for 2 weeks is frustrating.
Right. Bear in mind that most manufacturers order things from their factories 3, 6, 9 months ahead, basically. So you're looking at deliveries now that we made back orders for in March. So things have changed. We're selling an awful lot of stuff, but that mix has changed, obviously, as Art was saying. Production cameras, we're actually still selling them, but less. Things like PTZ cameras, anything with an IP connectivity you can stream from, are basically gold dust. We're selling an awful lot more of those, and we're having to sort of change our orders, change our deliveries, have different factories make more of a certain product and less of another. So we're adapting. It's not easy, but we're adapting and trying to sort of fulfill the spaces that are out there in the market.
I've only had one actual incident, and it was a microphone, a specialty microphone, a very expensive one. And the manufacturer told me none in stock in A stock, none in stock in B stock, and we have no idea of the ETA of this particular microphone. And to be honest with you, that's the first thing that hit me, because I've been selling cinema cameras, PTZ cameras, mostly Panasonic, and I haven't had a problem. I recently finished a job with a local church, or finished demonstrating and speccing the job, and they asked if we get permission to buy this stuff. It's 9 cameras. What's the turnaround time? And right. Panasonic goes through distribution, so I called my favorite distribution center, and all the cameras that I need are in stock, at not in the same location, but in various locations around the United States. So I'm really not going to have any problem filling that order when it happens.
Everything has changed so much, and one of the things that I was thinking about is that normally, particularly if you're going to be trying to buy cameras, one of the things that you want, as a customer, one of the things you want to do is compare cameras. And, we don't have the trade shows. You can't go look at them. And I know, Steve, that you used to do a lot of camera shootouts where various manufacturers would come in with their cameras and set them all up, and people could look at them and test them. How's that working now?
Basically, life goes on and we have to make do. Obviously we're unable to travel to a customer's location. We still have a lot of demo equipment in the pool floating around the US. And what we'll typically do is work with the customer on timing and scheduling, things like that. We'll drop ship the equipment to him. And with the magic of things like Microsoft Teams and Zoom and people like that, we'll literally have a meeting with the customer, explain to him how to set the stuff up. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but make sure everything's working correctly. Then we'll have some sort of, I won't say training, but some sort of overview of what the camera does, how he's trying to do things, how to test things. And we can basically be semi-live, but maybe 3,000 miles away. So we're watching what's going on, we can help out. It's a little difficult sometimes looking at the nuances of test charts and lighting and things like that, but we can probably do 85 to 90% of a shootout side by side with the customer, but from 3,000 miles away. If necessary, we can jump in over IP to control the camera.
When I look at it, I can definitely see that like houses of worship probably have a great need for this now, since they can't meet in person. Schools have a great need for remote production because of distance learning. And, Art, I'd ask you about corporate, what corporate is doing. And I guess my question really is, when you look at those specific three markets, are people buying or are people waiting?
Well, I can say from my standpoint, I mean, as an end user, as a producer, what I need right now is streaming gear. So I've got a PO out for some bonded cellular encoders. I've got a PO out for, decoders and routers and pieces that are helping me to facilitate live streaming.
Since the trade shows have pretty much stopped, there's a feeling that I've got kind of in the back of my head that they may not come back, that maybe people will say, okay, this is the new normal, like we're doing here, and it works, and we don't have to spend all of that money. What do you think about that? Is there going to be another NAB, you think?
There are so many trade shows, so many film festivals, so many little micro niche events. Some of those will go away. Some may grow, some may be more important. I think they'll be different regardless of what they are. But I think in some cases, like the NAB, it's been around for probably 50 years, I suppose, or more. And it's an institution, it's a cultural thing. People want to see and touch equipment. And from Panasonic's point of view, we don't debut that much equipment, but we have 200,000 or 300,000 people come and visit us at the NAB over those 4 or 5 days. And that's going to be very hard to do without. You can't do that via Zoom to 200,000 people. So something will go on, but it'll be different.
I think from an end user, I still like going to the shows. I like the hands-on, the interpersonal discussions about gear with the people who are engineering it or working on the systems. But if, let's say, Panasonic decided not to go for reasons, money or whatever, and enough manufacturers stopped demonstrating, there'd be no reason for me to go.
I mean, the fact that NAB is such a huge, it's not just broadcast, it's production, it's all those little knickknacks, gotcha, things you want to sort of make a system work, sports trucks down to battery chargers. And we have news cameras, we have production cameras, we have pan and tilt cameras, we got switches, we got 8K cameras. We're not a tiny niche company that makes just one thing to one audience. So we have this very, very varied and wide sort of user base. And you could probably do something like that virtually, but you need to have an enormous array of sort of subsets, marketing to different groups. So it's been discussed, as you can imagine, quite heatedly inside of all companies today.
A lot of companies don't know how to market digitally. They just don't, and they're used to doing things the old-fashioned way, which is, demonstrations, in-person, events, trade shows of that nature, and they don't know how to take a page out of like Apple's playbook. Apple can announce a webcast, and 5 million people will tune in to watch it, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But a lot of companies don't know how to really leverage the digital end of it.
Virtually everybody is now doing production, even the Democratic National Convention, which is going on right as we speak, kind of like this. Is there a sense from you guys that this may become what's accepted, and after COVID is all over, the big budget items for productions, I mean, Hollywood will still go on, but for corporate and those, are those going to just go away, or will it come back?
I say no, it will not go away. I mean, this is an acceptable way of communicating, and it's getting better. But face to face, I think will always be there. NAB is very valuable for me, for seeing clients, for seeing manufacturers, for seeing equipment. I think a combination of these things is there'll be more tools available for us, but I don't think any of them are going to be eliminated. There's no way face-to-face, hands-on demonstrations are going to stop. For the 3 years that Showcase has been closed, and I'm still dealing with Atlanta clients that I've known for over 20 years, I constantly hear, gosh, I wish there was a place like Showcase where I could go and touch the stuff and talk to you guys and pick things up, a brick and mortar kind of a place. And that's sort of a similar feel for NAB and for the gatherings of the people that go to those shows. I just think there's always going to be a place for it while I'm in this business.
The fact that I think it's important to realize that things like the NAB or a Cinti convention or whatever your local regional trade show is, it's not a case of Panasonic, whoever, being there with a bunch of stuff, saying, here's a camera, here's whatever. There's also a lot of user input. We talk to people who use our equipment, who might use our equipment. Feedback in terms of functionality, features, what's right, what's wrong, the size, the shape. And that is very, very difficult to do by Zoom to a huge audience. That sort of personal feedback and fine-tuning of products is very important for product development, and finding out that something is as simple as the button is in the wrong place, or why does this happen in the menu. That's understated a lot, but tremendously important to product development and new features.
Let's switch gears and let's talk about, like big scale productions. So Steve, is Hollywood starting to come back? What's happening?
Yes, a little bit. In fact, I was contacted last Friday and Saturday by a production for Amazon. And they're using, I think it's 7 of the Vericams. And this is a lot of technical, how does this work, what codecs, what LUTs, and things like that. But that's an example of something being done not post-COVID, during COVID. All the precautions about social distancing and cleansing the cameras, and that's still being worked out, but that's obviously very important. But they are doing something. And this morning I was talking to another colleague at work, and he's based in New Jersey. There's a lot of colleagues in the sort of New York production community, and a lot of the sort of Long Island City type studios are starting up again. So there's productions ramping up, colorists, DITs, production coordinators, things like that, are sort of getting back into the swing. Some of the shows that are put on hiatus are coming back and probably will be shooting in the next week or two. So it's a good start.
As far as corporate goes, all my events, I do a lot of travel events with golf. All my stuff's been basically canceled, deferred, postponed. A couple of them have gone virtual. That's why I'm looking at, streaming gear. But as far as, production, I did one job where I traveled to San Francisco and shot on site because it had to be done that way. It was a factory and we had to shoot, on the premise. But it was a whole runaround rigmarole, and I don't think a lot of places are just ready to deal with the logistics. I did read though, and Kenny, you might know some of this, being that you're in Atlanta, but
The Tyler Perry.
the
Yeah.
cost, yeah, the Tyler Perry concept of the production bubble is adding about $5 million per production to the bottom line cost of those shows, and that's not a cost that most productions are going to absorb.
He's on local news a lot, obviously, because he's, you know, huge here in Georgia, and he's been very successful on just getting it going, just obeying all the little protocols and everything, getting it all worked out. When you look at how he's got his sets and workplaces, it just looks extremely well thought out. And I was thinking the same thing that Art just mentioned. It's like, oh my, I didn't know the number until just now, but I said, oh my God, this looks very expensive to be able to do what he's doing the way he's doing it as safely as it looks like he's doing it. But he's doing it.
He's doing it, yeah. All right. I guess the last question that I would ask is for each of you, if you have any kind of last thoughts on how we can all get through this period.
We need a vaccine to get back to normal, and my reasoning is those of us of a certain age seem to be taking precautions, and a lot of young people are not. And my example is Sunday night I played a gig in Atlanta at Park Tavern, corner of Piedmont Park and 10th Street. And it was safe. It was outside. There was spacing. There were masks. It was good. On the way home, I decided to drive up 10th Street up to the interstate and then head north, come home. And on 10th Street, I must have passed hundreds of 25 and unders, bumper to bumper. And I don't mean cars. I mean people that were coming in and out of clubs all over the place, walking around, having a good time, but just shoulder to shoulder everywhere and no masks anywhere. So I'm thinking, you know, I'm not blaming them. I'm thinking of myself when I was 24 years old and I was invincible also. But until there's a vaccine, I just can't imagine us stopping this spreading.
We don't have spare time, we have different time, we're reacting and so on like that, but polishing up on different skills, learning new tricks. I'm a sort of colorist, not a color scientist, but I like color workflows and things like that. My IT skills are a bit lacking, so I've been quite busy brushing up on some of that stuff. So learning new skills, adapting to what's going to be coming in 6 months' time, I think is important. It will be different.
I was just going to say, I think really that even if we have a vaccine, it's not going to be quick and it's not going to be as early as some people are talking about. I think that the key to surviving this is to adapt and to overcome, get into whatever it is new, because the old way of doing things is not going to be back with us. The old way is done in many, many ways. I don't know if we'll ever come back, but I'm adapting. I've had to adapt my whole business to be more focused on live streaming and less on in person. And as Steve was saying, take the time to learn new skills, brush up on stuff that's relevant now, like IP and IT related workflows and streaming and codecs, and that's just the reality.
I guess that's sort of the mantra. Everybody stay healthy and learn new skills. And I want to thank all of you guys for coming on and talking and sharing your perspective. And remember, Art's got his podcast, This Week in Production. That comes out every Thursday. Is that right, Art?
Every Friday.
Every Friday. Okay. Yeah, Thursday's my YouTube channel. So we're kind of doing that. All right. Thanks, guys. Stay safe, stay well, and keep it rocking.
Thanks, Bernie.
All right.